Good afternoon. This is the Board of Appeals, Town of Hempstead, June 14th, 2023, 2 p.m. meeting. Mr. Chairman, do you have any opening remarks?
It appears we have some people who've been here before and a lot of people who have not been here before. So the protocol that we follow is we will call adjournments first, and after that we'll start calling the cases. The way the hearings work, and all of the hearings are videotaped. You can look at them. They're live streamed. We have a court reporter who takes down the proceedings so that anyone who would like to review anything said during the day can do so later if they have a question about what was said and who said it. The order in which the cases proceed is the applicant will come, make their case first. If there are any objectants, then the objectant will be called, and the objectants, if there are more than one, will state their case, and the applicant will then be called to sum up, and then we will adjourn. Right? Once the case is finished, we won't accept any additional evidence. If you can't stay for the entire proceeding, we will accept emails, we accept letters, we read everything. You have a question, ma'am?
Excuse me, sir. Because of the roaring of the air conditioner, we can't hear you back here.
So what do you want to do about that? Turn it off. Well, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll speak a little bit louder. Okay? Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, we have one application for adjournment. Case 135723.
No problems. Is that mine? Pardon?
Okay. Case 135723, Inwood, Isaiah Moultrie, Eula Moultrie, Sandra Nichols, Isaiah Moultrie Sr., Mott Avenue Real Estate Holdings Ltd., and Jonathan Davis. Special exception to exceed floor area ratio. Variances: height exceeds number of stories. Lot area occupied. Front yard setback on Bayview Avenue and Russell Place, and within clear sight triangle on both streets. Side yard, rear yard, construct 5-story multifamily building with accessory parking in portion of first floor. Rehearing of case number 18520, northwest corner of Bayview Avenue and Russell Place.
Mr. D'Agostino, could you use the microphone because these folks can't hear?
My name is Albert D'Agostino. Law firm is Minerva and D'Agostino, PC, 107 South Central Avenue, Valley Stream, New York, 11580. My firm represents Lawrence Union Free School District number 15. Lawrence Union Free School District number 15.
In opposition.
Well, right now interested, and back in July of 2020, when this case was first heard, the district was very strongly in opposition. I'm not saying it's not at this point. The relief requested is largely the same that was before the board at that time, and I've been asked by the district to request an adjournment to give us an opportunity to review the file to determine exactly
What your position on the issue is?
well, what the situation is, and it was based upon the sign on the property, which recited the very detailed relief requested today. I did have a telephone conversation with the applicant's attorney yesterday and advised him that I would be making this request. So again, this would give the district an opportunity to review what has occurred since 2020 to determine what is before you today or going forward.
How much time do you think you need, Mr. D'Agostino?
I would ask for somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members. Christian Brown, McLaughlin and Stern, 1122 Franklin Avenue, Garden City. I did speak with Mr. D'Agostino yesterday, as he indicates. I just want to briefly state, I understand the board's custom. But just for the record, this case has been sort of returned to this board as a result of unrelated to zoning litigation between the applicant and the town board. And that litigation has now been settled. In the course of that litigation regarding whether this applicant was entitled to a building permit, the building department discovered an alleged discrepancy between the floor area ratio number that was on the plan approved by this board and what the building department now says should have been that number. Essentially boils down to the fact that the original number did not count in towards floor area ratio a partial basement, even though that partial basement has always been on the plan. There's no change whatsoever to the project or the plan. It's simply that my client agreed with the town that as part of the settlement of the litigation, that we would come back to this board to resolve the discrepancy in the FAR number. That
In settlement of the litigation that you referenced, that's not related to this application.
With the town.
correct.
Okay.
So this discrepancy was discovered in the course of it. I'm not fighting with them about whether it should have, the legitimacy of it. We were asked to come back to clear it up. We agreed to do so. We agreed in the stipulation that this would be the date for the hearing. So my client, what I'm getting at is a long way of saying, one, I just want to let the school district know on the record, and anyone else here that's interested, is that there's no change to what was proposed and approved prior, number one. And number two, there is some exigency because this has gone on a long time and my client is under a lot of pressure to close on his financing and hopefully move forward with this project.
When was that settlement entered into?
Approximately 6 weeks ago.
Settlement that set this date.
Correct. So I guess I understand Mr. D'Agostino wants some time to review with his client, but I would ask if you do adjourn it, if you could just put it over to the next calendar, which is 2 weeks away. That would be strongly preferred because, again, my client is under a lot of pressure to hopefully obtain this building permit, be able to close on his financing. He has contractors already lined up, and the site itself has already been demolished, and it's a construction site, and we don't want to leave it in that condition for any longer than we have to.
So the only change to the prior request is this reimagined FAR.
The FAR number the first time did not include the basement, even though the basement was on the plan. At one point, the building department said it doesn't have to be. Now they're saying it does have to be, so that's why we're here.
So that's a yes. The
That's a
only
yes.
change.
That's a yes.
That's a yes. So I'm asking for just if we could do it on June 28th, I think is your next date, that would be strongly preferred.
Patrick?
Mr. D'Agostino, you knew of the date today, 6 weeks ago.
I'm sorry?
When this date was settled upon 6 weeks ago, were you aware of that? or-
No. My client only became aware when the sign went up on the property.
Which was when?
The usual time. We gave enough time to do the usual re-noticing so that this case has been calendared pursuant to the usual notice requirements. It's just that we had agreed in the stipulation that it would be today, so long as we submitted our paperwork in time. We did, and that's why we're here.
So like 4 weeks ago or something?
Yeah, about May 27th, I think.
Patrick. Yeah, do you have any objection to the 28th?
It's at the pleasure of the board.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, we could do the 28th at 2
we
PM.
can do that?
Yes, sir.
28, 2 PM.
Anyone who's here on this case, the new date is, as you heard, June 28th at 2 PM. There will be no further notice mailed to you, so put it on your calendar now if you wish to attend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Okay. Next, we have case 40123, Levittown, Viola Freitas. Variance, lot area occupied, maintained shed, also known as 31 Meadow Lane.
Viola Freitas. Now? Now? My name is Viola Freitas at 31.
Ann Freitas, 31 Meadow Lane.
Viola Freitas, 31 Meadow Lane, Levittown.
Are you here? You here on this case, sir?
You're on here too, they want to know. Do you want his name?
Close the door. Come on.
Name and address.
Harry Bonilla, 31 Meadow Lane.
Okay.
Okay,
Can't hear.
everyone, the court reporter can't hear, so if you're not speaking in the microphone,
Can't-
don't speak right now.
They're not the ones. It's the people out in the hallway. Rob, do you want to tell those people they have to
Tell those people.
they have to
keep
leave
quiet.
or
You
keep
can't.
quiet?
Way downstairs.
Or get out of the building. How about that? Be nice if we. Okay. There is no. Looks like I'm.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Not so? Really? All right. Here I am. Can you hear me now? Okay, thanks. So I'm here about getting a variance for a shed in my backyard. I was told from the zoning office to bring a site plan and radius map. I think you'll have about 10 of them. So I have pictures of the shed in question if you wanted to see it. And anything else you want, I probably have it here. We're sisters and we live in the same house. I don't know what an LPRD is. Oh.
Here it is, we got one of those. Here, we got it.
Up to 30% of the area of the lot.
Yes. Yes, I have pictures of it if you'd like to see. Pictures? No, pictures of the shed? I never submitted pictures, so here they are.
Okay, so what do we use the shed for?
Lawn equipment, our bikes and stuff like that.
Okay. And I see from the other photographs we had, however we've gotten them,
Yeah, I can show you many pictures. I don't think I submitted pictures, though. I don't.
Okay.
Okay.
but other than a minor lot area occupied variance, you don't need any other relief in order to continue to keep your shed where it is.
Correct.
Okay, I think we understand it. Is there anything else you wish to add?
No, do you need any more pictures or information?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Nope. Do we have any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would just move that the hearing be closed, that the matter be placed on the decision calendar. Each of you who have signed in will receive a copy of the board's decision by mail once we render it. You're done. Good job. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Subdivision. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Everybody's in favor.
Thank you.
That's mine.
Okay. Next, we have case 40223 Baldwin, Leonardo and Sandra Lopez. Variances, subdivision of lot area, maintained dwelling and detached garage on a lesser lot, also known as 1849 Fargo Street, as well as application 40323 Baldwin, New York Land Development 2 Corporation. Variances, subdivision of lot area, front width from and on-street line to front setback line, lot area occupied to construct dwelling with garage. West side of Visage Street, 100 feet north of Pilgrim Avenue.
No. We have a couple of people who signed in without designating their distributions.
Yes, for the applicant, Robert W. O'Brien, 877 North Corona Avenue, North Valley Stream, New York.
James Bianco, President, New York Land Development, 1136 Arlington Avenue, Franklin Square.
Jed Nelson, real estate appraiser, 1380 Belmore Avenue, Belmore, New York.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. At the outset, I'd like to move to have the two cases consolidated and heard as one.
We'll grant that.
And today I represent the applicants, New York Land Development 2 Corp., Leonardo Lopez, Sandra Lopez, with respect to the instant application for a two-lot subdivision in the hamlet of Baldwin. As noted, to my far left is our real estate expert, Jed Nelson, who's prepared to testify regarding the nature and character of the area and the benefit of the application to the applicants outweighs any detriment to the surrounding community. Also present, to put his appearance on the record, immediately to my left is James Bianco, who is the principal of New York Land Development 2 Corp. To answer any questions. I'm sorry?
Just keep speaking louder.
Yeah, I'm trying to move it as close as possible. That'll be the day, right? The property that is the subject of this application is on the east side of Fargo Street. and goes to the west side of Osage Street, approximately 100 feet north of Pilgrim Avenue. For the record, it is known on the Nassau County tax map as Section 36, Block 376, lots 8 and 13. The parcel as it currently exists is almost, not completely, a perfect rectangle with 41.2 feet of frontage on Fargo Street, 200 feet of depth on each side, and I believe it's 40 feet of frontage on Osage Street. I hope I'm pronouncing Osage correctly, but it's the best I can do. Currently, the property is improved by a one-family dwelling on the Fargo Street or westerly side of the property, which is the Lopez's residence. In case number 402, New York Land is seeking to construct a dwelling with garage on the easterly half of the parcel along existing tax lot lines with 40 feet of frontage, 100 feet of depth on each side, and a rear property line of 38.73 feet.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes,
Do you
Mrs.
need
DeVore.
front width on the maintain? Because I don't have it, and it looks like you do.
On the maintain, I don't believe so, because the house already exists, Mrs. D'Amato.
So you're okay on the front width?
That is my understanding, how the building department views that. So the variance is needed for the construct, or for subdivision of lot area, front width from and on street line to front setback line, and lot area occupied. In the other case, the Lopez's are proposing to maintain the existing dwelling with garage on the westerly half of the parcel along existing tax lot lines with 41.2 feet of frontage, 100 feet of depth on each side, and the same rear property line of 38.73 feet. The variance is needed to do so for subdivision of lot and lot area. Although there are a number of substandard properties in the area, I'll leave it to Mr. Nelson to get into that aspect of that aspect of the case in detail. However, the board is aware, it's my practice to make a physical inspection of the area. That inspection revealed that, as per the radius map, there are a number of what that is often referred to as 40-footers in the area. You'll look immediately across the street on Fargo Street. You'll look at the adjoining properties to the north on Osage Street. They're small, for the most part, smaller, older homes, well-kept. If you go all the way to the north, where you see Willow Bend Lane, you'll see that street there. I believe that's Baldwin High School, just to the north of that, or the Baldwin High School property. And just at this point in time, I will also state for the record that if the board is inclined to grant the applications, the applicant, Mr. Bianco and New York Land on the new construct, is amenable to all reasonable and customary conditions that the board has been known to impose to ensure that the property is used as a single-family residence and not as a multi-family one, and that would include a provision that the new home to be constructed be owner-occupied, as opposed to a rental property. And unless the board has any other questions of me at this point in time, I will turn it over to Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson, you've previously been qualified by this board as a real estate expert. Since the last time you appeared before the board, have any of your qualifications changed?
No, sir.
So we will again qualify you as an expert. For
Thank you,
those of
Mr.
you
Chairman.
who are not aware of that, that enables Mr. Nelson to give an opinion. The weight we give to his opinion, the board will undertake that at the appropriate time. But he is entitled to give an opinion as to real estate values. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Once again, Jed Nelson. I am a real estate appraiser. I have prepared, just to do some housekeeping, I have prepared a booklet of photographs. The photographs were taken by me on Thursday, June 8th at approximately 11 a.m. in the morning. They are of the subject property, the surrounding properties. In my professional opinion, they accurately depict the neighborhood and the character, the essential character of this neighborhood. In addition, in this booklet is a location map, an aerial map, and also a location map of similar variances that have been granted in the area. I'd like to submit this for the board's review, as long as you're
You
here.
want to show that? We'll accept that in evidence. How many copies of that do you have, Mr. Nelson?
Of the package?
Yes.
Just one of the photographs.
Okay, Patrick, before we take it in evidence, would you like to show it to, Mrs. Ippolito? I assume you're here in opposition? Okay, would you like to look at that?
Mr.
And
Nelson,
then we
in the
will look
future,
at
could
it.
you give us a couple? You don't
Yeah.
have to give us 7, but
By
I'd
all
really like to
means.
see them, Mr. All of us, you know.
I
Give us
understand.
more than one.
Well,
at least.
Color
Otherwise,
pictures cost a lot of money, though, but by all means,
right.
I'd be happy to.
Oh, they don't have to be perfect. You can just use a color printer or something.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll just bargain for 2 then instead of 1 at this point.
I promise the next time I come in, I will have more than one.
so we'll pass it around and take 3 or 4 hours to review all of the photographs, since
in
we're so
addition-
kind.
There'll be a direct connection between the time it takes
Well, I'm just gonna bill it to my client,
to
so
get my job.
Why not?
that's it.
Okay,
Mr. O'Brien, you get the job.
In addition, I've prepared a radius map that highlights similar properties in the neighborhood. The subject property is highlighted in green. The yellow indicates similar size lots in the 100 and 200-foot radius, as well as I have prepared a grid that outlines what I will testify to today.
we'll take that in evidence as well, show it to Ms. Ippolito. There's something else also. Is there a Leonardo Lopez here? Mr. Nelson forgot to indicate whether he's in favor or opposed. Mr. Nelson, you forgot to indicate whether you're in favor or opposed, but we'll assume that you're in favor.
I can't be an adversary. I am just an interested party hired as an expert.
Okay.
I'm not here to take either side.
Okay.
I'm just presenting as an expert.
Okay,
Not the answer you wanted?
No, I don't want any. I didn't expect that. I
I'm,
assumed you would say that you're here on behalf of the applicant, but that's okay.
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 Yes.
Oh, they don't have it anymore?
No.
We can't find people who are interested. That's the reason for that, Mr. O'Brien.
Well, actually, I'm glad you told me, because that makes perfect sense now.
All right,
that
all right, got
It's
it.
not the
Come on.
first one that, no, we don't have interested column anymore.
We'll have to restore the interested column. Patrick, in the future, you'll see to it that we restore the interested column to keep some
Okay.
people happy.
The subject property is a unique piece in that it affords 2 street frontages and it is not a corner site. The vacant parcel is located on the west side of Vassage Street, 100 feet north of Pilgrim Avenue, while the improved portion of the property is located on the east side of Fargo Street, 101.27 feet north of Pilgrim Avenue. Both are situated in the hamlet of Baldwin, part of the town of Hempstead, Nassau County, New York. The properties are designated as Section 36, Block 376, Lot 13 for the vacant piece and Lot 8 for the improved piece, according to the Nassau County Land and Tax Map. They're both zoned Residence B by the Town of Hempstead Building Department. We're going to focus at this time on the vacant parcel facing onto Vassage Street. The site maintains 40 feet of frontage along Vassage Street with 100 feet in depth, containing a total of 4,000 square feet in total lot area. The property has been vacant and unimproved since the creation of the block maps in the early 1900s. The property remains separate and independent since 1965, when, according to the Nassau County property cards, it was grouped with the lot number 8. Therefore, it appears that this parcel was initially intended to be developed similar to the way the original block maps were created, separate from one another. Similarly, the residence abutting the subject property to the west, lot number 8, being a residence at 1849 Fargo Street, was originally built in 1924 on a 41.27 by 100-foot lot, as it was intended to be developed and remained as such once again until it was grouped in 1965, with the lot behind it being lot number 13. Both of these lots are the subject of this application. Not only is this a unique parcel, but it is also a unique neighborhood. As seen on the radius map, the street widens approximately 75 feet north of the subject property. From that portion of Vassage Street south towards the subject property, it was primarily developed in the mid-1920s to the early 1930s. Many of these lots afford 40 feet of street frontage, indicating that the original intention was for the property to be developed on a 40-foot wide lot. I have also prepared block maps from the original block maps that were available in Nassau County. The first one is section 36, block 376, which is where the subject property is located, and you'll notice how the street widens just north of the subject property. On this block is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 40 by 100 lots. I'd like to submit that. Give me a moment, I'll get you all of them at once. In addition, I was able to print out another block map, which comes out of the mynassauproperty.com, which you can see that this includes several blocks. It includes Fargo to the west, as well as Schoen Street also to the west, down from Seaman Avenue to the south, all the way up to Willow Bend, and Willow Bend creates a new neighborhood. But you can also see that there are many 40 by 100s on this block. In addition, the original block, section 36, block 426, you can see that all these lots are 20 by 100s, the majority of which now have created 40 by 100 lots. I'd like to submit these for the board to review. I'm going to give you more. In addition, as I testified earlier, the original property card shows that Lot 8 and Lot 13 were separate lots when originally created. It also showed that on 1965, the lots were joined together. So they remained separate for 45 or 50 years. It was only when the parcel at 1849 was purchased, and also the lot on Vassage was purchased, that they were merged together. So I'll submit the original property card. The widening portion of Vassage Street, approximately 75 feet north of the subject property, appears to have been developed in the 1950s, as a majority of these homes along Willow Bend Lane were built circa 1959 and into the early 1960s. So this neighborhood has changed in respect to the property sizes, age of the homes, and the neighborhood prices. With respect to the radius map, within the 100-foot radius of the subject property, there are 18 improved lots. 10 of the 18, or 56%, afford 40 feet of street frontage. If you didn't count the 2 homes that face onto Willow Bend Lane and were developed after the changing of the zoning, Residence B zoning requirements, then there are only 16 lots developed. 10 of the 16, or 63%, of the remaining homes afford 40 feet of street frontage or less. Within the 200-foot radius, there are 31 developed lots. 16 of the 31, or 52%, afford 40 feet of street frontage. Once again, if you eliminated the homes that were developed 1960 or later after the change of the zoning requirements, there are only 24 improved lots. 16 of the 24, or 67%, afford 40 feet of street frontage. Along Vossage Street, between the widening of the road to the north of the subject and Seaman Avenue, which is the first block to the south, there are 28 residential improved lots. 21 of these 28, or 75% of them, afford 40 feet of street frontage, clearly demonstrating this was the original intention of how this neighborhood was intended to be developed. Similarly, along Fargo Street, between the widening once again to the north and Seaman Avenue to the south, there are 27 improved residential lots. 15 of the 27, or 56%, afford 40 feet of street frontage. Therefore, by the granting of this requested area variance in this application, it will not alter the essential characteristics of this neighborhood, nor will it be creating a new precedent. There are no similar properties in this area that afford two street frontages back-to-back like the subject. The two street frontages provided by the subject property appear to have been how the property was originally intended to be developed, and in my professional opinion, should be developed to finish the jigsaw puzzle. You like that, huh? It is my professional opinion that by granting this application, it will not produce an undesirable change to this neighborhood. It will not have an adverse impact to any of the existing properties as to their market value or marketability. All utilities are readily available on Vossage Street, including electric, water, sewer, cable service, et cetera, et cetera. The proposed new construction will provide on-site parking with a one-car internal garage and a parking pad suitable for 2 to 3 additional cars. The existing maintain already affords a one-car detached garage on site and a driveway suitable for an additional 2 to 3 cars. Just to cover some economics, my research investigation reveals homes in this area of Baldwin sell from the low $400,000 to the high of over $700,000. Anticipated sales price of the subject proposed new construction should be between $690,000 to $725,000, demonstrating that the proposed development will be towards the higher end of the value range in this area. It is my professional opinion that the proposed variance applications make good sense and offers a good solution to assist in the need for residential housing and to help support neighborhood values. It will also help increase the appeal and the aesthetics of the area, all of which can be achieved without a detriment to the existing community or the existing properties. As of today, my research showed that in all of Baldwin, there are currently 41 homes listed for sale on the multiple listing service. That is substantially below what is normal and typical and has been seen in the past. That is my presentation. I'd be
Mr.
happy to
Nelson,
add.
I only see two in the vicinity that this could even possibly have any precedential value in subsequently subdivision requests. Is that about right?
And which two properties would those be?
The one that's lot 199, 98, 97, 96, direct.
Right. Gubadia, yes, I agree with you, but in order to create two lots out of either one of those parcels, you would need to demolish the existing home. Economics and prices would prohibit it from being a financially feasible project. These houses would sell in the higher end of the value range, probably $600,000-$700,000. So if somebody's not going to buy that, tear it down to get 2 lots, because the numbers just don't work.
Put the value just off the cuff of, let's say, the Ippolito residence, because that's
Uh,
got a...
It's a very, very nice one-story ranch home. I would estimate it to be in the mid to high 600s.
And you, but that said, you think a
Does she want to sell?
house on this small lot, if approved, the lot B, would be of a similar value?
I do. New homes generally sell for higher prices than existing homes. The house is going to be in demand. I do have other comparable sales in the area that show these prices are legitimate. They're, yes, I anticipate it to sell better than $700,000.
Wow, that surprises me, even in new construction on that small lot, would even approach that.
Thank you.
Any questions of me? That's our case, and I just would like time to respond
Understood.
to any of the neighbors' comments.
Okay.
Mrs. Ippolito, you signed in?
Step up to the podium, name and address,
For the
very
record.
loudly if you can. We have the machine,
Patrick will
and
tell
it's
her.
hard to hear.
Did
We don't want to hear you anymore.
did the interns get paid?
I'm guessing no.
Board members.
Please, could you,
You gotta speak way loud.
Good afternoon, Chairman, board members. My name is Stephanie Ippolito. What I'd like to just note is no homeowner has owned that second lot that they wanted to subdivide. And for the separate dwelling, how would we be able to control who is owning that dwelling? Is it going to be a rental property? We already have issues with people renting out their properties. So,
For starters, on some level, we can't control who owns it because that's
That's
constitutional
understandable.
right, but they've already said they would agree.
To a
whoever
condition.
owns it must occupy, so it could not become
a rental property?
right, but how would we know if it's going to be a single family, a multiple?
No.
They're saying that it's going to be a single family, but how would we know that it's going to turn into a multiple family
Because you're
home?
going to call us if it does.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry?
Because you're going to call the building department if 2 families start living there, or if they put a second kitchen in.
And also with the setback rule, it's supposed to be 5 feet at the very bare minimum on either side. How would we know that they go over? These plans have already been
Wait,
denied 2 times.
Slow down, let's answer each one.
Okay.
They are not requesting
Side yard variance.
to deviate from the required front,
Right.
rear, or side yard setbacks.
Right.
So that's not before us, and if they build it that way, they'll have real problems. So,
But how would anyone be able to control if they went over the setback? Who is going to be there
Well,
to,
If you think you live next door, and if you believe that they're not building in accordance with the plans, or the building is closer to your property line than anticipated, you call the building department, and they will go out and issue a stop work order.
so is there going to be someone from the building department that's going to inspect the,
yeah.
If you call, and by the way, before they get a certificate of occupancy, someone from the building department will have to go out and inspect the premises.
So the building department comes out, once they call, to get their final inspection and various other inspections along the way, the foundation, et cetera. And they have the information about what has been approved. And they come out and they measure, and if the foundation, for example, is not in accordance with the plans, which these plans and this request do not include the right to encroach side, front, rear yard, then that puts up, after they get their CO, which includes multiple inspections by the town enforcement, code enforcement folks. Once that's done, if they thereafter alter it, then usually someone in the neighborhood calls and says, they're doing work, they don't have a permit, and it's clear they're encroaching in a way that they're not legally allowed to do.
Okay, but several fences and other dwellings have gone up where there have been no permits.
Well,
If no one complains,
Okay.
and that, we're talking about this particular property, we're not talking about other things.
Okay,
All right,
understandable.
I mean, you're actually the police person, all right? If you think that anything is going on there that is not in accordance with the file plans, you're supposed to be calling, or you should be calling the building department.
Okay, well.
You live
also-
there, and the,
trust you.
Okay.
and the town is going to go out, the town inspectors are going to go out periodically and inspect this during the course of construction.
Well, another point that I'd like to bring out is that this is a suburban area, not urban. So why are we overcrowding our area? This lot was always undeveloped. So why is it now being developed? As long as I've lived there, it's always been a single lot. So why is it now being split into two lots? So should the residents of Vossage, Fargo, Shone, Willow Bend, Pilgrim, should we now petition to get our taxes lowered for property and school?
We're not going to give you advice on that, on that particular issue. If you feel that your property values are diminished because of this
I feel that
construction.
it is being
you-
diminished.
You have the ability to make that case before the Board of Assessment.
Because I feel this is going to set a precedent
Okay.
where if one person does it, other people do it, and I respectfully disagree that they think that a home is going to go for $725,000, where I could do the same thing with my lot, and if they don't think that I can get just as much, if not more, from my lot, if I was to tear down my house and do the same exact thing.
You can make that application before the board if you choose to do so.
And just so
And
you,
we'll render a decision based on the merits. Okay?
but just so you know, that was the question I asked.
Right, and
The-
I heard
the
you, and I
issue you
appreciate you bringing
raised-
that up.
The issue you raise is one of the impact it might have on other lots.
Mm-hmm.
Other than your lot,
There were only-
in the vicinity there.
there's only one.
Yeah,
There is only one other lot in the vicinity that is of a size that would
No,
enable
actually,
that to
they're
be
my
done.
next-door neighbors.
Hold on.
Hold on.
So, just to finish my thought, there's yours and there's the Glavadia,
Yes.
that appear to, that they would lend themselves size-wise to this type of application.
And there's also a property across the street from me. There's two properties across the street from me.
Across the street from where?
Where are they?
The one right across the street, it's 21 Bassett Street,
Is it
and the
one-
other one, 21
Walters.
Bassett Street, and the
Walters
other
and
one
Whitkin.
is on the corner of Pilgrim and Fargo. Those two are also big lots. I don't know if they're the same size as my property, but those two are also big lots.
Okay, I recognize the lots. I'm not clear on whether or not, so in this case, they're street to street. Those may be street to street, I don't know. But if it's not street to street.
It's not street to street, they're corner properties.
Corner.
So what I'm saying is those properties can be split up as well, the same as my property and my next-door neighbor's property. So what I'm saying is those properties can be split up into
Okay,
lots.
slow down. Your next door neighbor property,
It's 60 by 100.
it's not, it's 60 by 100.
Can't do it.
So that is not, it's not comparable. Now, the others, it's unclear by the radius map if they're street to street.
Yeah.
If the lot is long and thin, but it doesn't have a street to enter onto,
Can't do
that's
it.
a different analysis.
Okay, I'm not talking about 1849 Fargo going across into Vossage. I'm talking about my property, which is 1860 Vossage Street. Then my next-door neighbor, she's on the corner of Pilgrim and Fargo.
That's,
Right, but what I'm talking about is lots. Her property could be split into lots.
no, it can't.
Too small.
She'd have to have a 30-foot frontage. They'd have to come back before that. That's a 60 by 100 lot.
Yeah, that's not comparable. Your property and the other one across, I'm not clear of the other three that
No.
you've referenced that are long and thin, because it would depend on the access areas, but let's just assume for a moment that there are those five, three of which would have to tear down their houses to do so, which does slightly change the equation. But the two here that are much more analogous is your lot, so you're right about that.
Your lot.
And the Guabadia lot. Those two are, that's why we discussed the precedential
Value.
impact that any grant might have. In our world, to be honest, two that are possible, that
hard to tell.
that have the size, but also would have to tear down the existing house, that's not much risk.
It's not the same
of-
case.
Because it's not just the size, but also the houses would be torn down,
Right.
which makes it much more cost prohibitive. In this application, they have one house they only have to build one house. And so that is a factor in the likelihood of things
Okay,
happening. or
let's
being
move on.
reversed.
Let's
Okay.
move.
Also, there is actually a lot of issues with overcrowding in our neighborhood, with the parking. We feel that it's going to cause a lot of issues with my block, with Pilgrim and Bossage. For my property alone, I have a driveway on Pilgrim and Bossage. On Pilgrim, we can hardly get into our driveway as it is. There is a no parking sign on Pilgrim and on Bossage Street, which is never adhered to. People are parking constantly on Pilgrim, and in one of the pictures that this gentleman has shown you, you could see all the cars parked on Bossage Street. So you could already see the overcrowding on parking. So if you allow a cutback, a curb cut for their driveway and for their garage, there's already going to be a problem with the parking. So where are they going to park? So now are they going to extend their parking into Bossage Street on my driveway on Bossage? So now I can't get out of either driveway? I'm sorry? And and there's also on the corner, one used to be the Baldwin Jewish Synagogue, is now a religious temple. So every weekend, there's an additional burden of parking. So it's just, we have the paraphernalia, the garbage, everything. It's just a very overcrowded area. To build another home, I think is overburdening the neighbors. And I did submit petitions that neighbors do not want this. They do not want the overcrowding in their neighborhood. And this has already been denied 2 times because of proposed building plans. So I would really just like the board to consider that neighbors do not want the overburden of adding another house on the street. And I respect that your consideration, and I thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Is there, I don't believe there's anyone else who signed in to speak on this matter? Okay.
Mr. O'Brien, by way of clarification,
Thank you so much.
is your client the owner of the property, or
No,
is he a contract vendee?
My client is my client, New York Land, is the contract vendee
Vendee.
for Lot 13.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Lopez are the owners of the property right now,
Got it.
and if this is granted, they will retain and then maintain the existing house on Lot 8.
Understood.
If
Okay.
I may, Mr. Chair, and just
Go right
take
ahead.
2 minutes. First, as far as the neighbor had questions about setbacks and building and what it's going to be used for, Mr. Bianco has built over 500 homes in the county of Nassau, has never had a problem before with any of the municipalities. That being said, there would be no incentive for him to build a house that did not comply with the plans that have been shown to the board today, and I think, Chair, you picked up on it. The building department would never issue a CO. If he asked for a 5-foot frontage, I'm sorry, a 5-foot setback, and he built a house with a 3-foot setback, he'd be sitting there carrying a house for a year that he couldn't sell because he couldn't get a CO. He would have to come back to this board for relief, and he's never had to do that in the past. Second, if you look at the pattern of development along Fargo, Osage, you'll see, at least on the west side of Osage, starting with the Falco residence, 40-footer, 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 60-footer. You go across the street, 40-footer, 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 60-footer. Slight anomaly on Osage, 40-footer, 40-footer. There's the 40-foot vacant lot my clients have, and then you have the 100 by 100 that the neighbor has. But the pattern of development is very consistent. And a question on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Lopez, the question I had asked, why should they be treated differently than the people who developed that area? At one point, the builder built houses, built the Bober residence, built the Deutsch residence, built the Al-Ain residence, the Hofflin residence, and even the 40-foot frontage house that the Lopezes have. Why should they not be able to get the same release? They're no different, they're no better, but they're no worse than anybody else in the neighborhood. And finally, if the application denied, it doesn't prevent the Lopezes from developing that part of the property. They may not be able to put a house on it, but there's still over 8,000 feet of lot area, and they could put extensions on, do other things, which really wouldn't fit into the nature and character of the area, but they could do that as a matter of right. So I would submit to the board that this is a very good application. Will have no detriment to the area. There'll be a benefit to the applicant, and I would ask the board to grant the application because of that.
Okay, that concludes your case. No, ma'am. No, nobody brought that up.
I'm going to Jed,
No,
Mr. Chairman.
nobody, ma'am, nobody brought that up. No one brought that
I'm going
up.
to object.
Okay. I don't think Mr. O'Brien meant to bring race into the picture.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely not.
It was merely okay. All right. We're going to conclude the hearing now. All right? Do I have any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the hearing be closed, that the matter be placed on the decision calendar. Everyone who signed in on the case will receive a copy of the board's decision by mail once it is rendered. Thank you, everyone, coming and participating, and enjoy the remainder of the day.
You're welcome. Well, we haven't made one yet. Second?
Aye.
All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have to hold because we don't have...
Next, we have case 40423, West Hempstead, New York Land Development 2 Corporation. Variances, subdivision of lot area, front width from and on street line to front setback line, lot area occupied, construct dwelling with garage. West side of Cayuga Road and 200 feet south of Hopatcong Avenue. We also have case 40523, West Hempstead, Razmik Bremen. Variances, subdivision of lot area, front width from and on street line to front setback line, average front yard setback, side yards aggregate, maintained dwelling on lesser lot, also known as 3 Cayuga Road. There, I sworn in.
Good afternoon again. Mr. Chairman, I'm here representing the applicants, New York Land Development 2 Corp. And Razmik Baramian regarding a proposed subdivision in the Lakeview section of West Hempstead. For the applicant, Robert W. O'Brien, 877 North Corona Avenue, North Valley Stream, New York.
James Bianco, President, New York Land Development, 1136 Arlington Avenue, Franklin Square.
How would you feel if I broke into song? No, just kidding. Jed Nelson, 1380 Belmore Avenue, Belmore, New York.
Thank you. As noted with me here today, he just put his appearance on the record. It again is our real estate expert, Jed Nelson, who is prepared to testify regarding the nature and character of the area, and that the benefit of the application to the applicants outweighs any detriment to the surrounding community. Also present is James Bianco, again to my immediate left, the president and principal of New York Land, to answer any questions the board may have regarding the application. I would ask that at this point that the matter be consolidated and heard as one. The property that is the subject of this application is on the west side of Keuka Road, approximately 200 feet south of Hopatcong Avenue. For the record, it's known on the Nassau County tax map as Section 35, Block 246, and lots 859 and 862. The parcel as it currently exists is a perfect rectangle, 80 feet of frontage on Keuka Road, 100 feet of depth on each side, and a rear property line of 80 feet. Currently, the property is improved by a one-family dwelling on the southerly side of the property. In case number 404, New York Land is seeking to construct a dwelling with garage on the northerly half of the parcel along existing tax lot lines with 40 feet of frontage and 100 feet of depth. The variances needed to do so are for subdivision of lot area, front width from and on street line to front setback line, and lot area occupied. In case number 405, Mr. Baramian proposes to maintain the existing dwelling with garage on the southerly half of the parcel along existing tax lot lines with 40 feet of frontage and 100 feet of depth. The variances needed to do so are for subdivision of lot area, front width from and on street line to front setback line, average front yard setback, and side yard aggregate. Although there are a number of substandard properties in the area, I will leave it to Mr. Nelson to get into that aspect of the case. Mr. Nelson is also going to, I want to specifically bring this to the board's attention. There was a prior application regarding this property in 2006, and my colleague, Mr. Nelson, is going to address it with the board and go into detail. However, just a couple of things so the board is aware. First, that case was for a high ranch. This is not a high ranch, and as the board is aware, this board has historically frowned on high ranches, or at least from probably the last 30 years because of the fact that they were easily adapted into multifamily residence. Second, at that time, there was, for want of a term, a bad tenant in the property. Apparently, there was an occupant of the property who was the scourge of the neighborhood with parties and other things. And third, and this I think is the most important of the fact, is the property that, if you see the lots, 859, 860, 861, and 862, apparently the house that exists there right now in 861 and 862 was built in and about 1932, same time that the Andre property to the south was built. They're both built on 40 by 100 lots. The existing property did not include the lots 859 and 860. That remained single and separate to approximately 1968, when it was then came into common ownership. And so if that had never come into common ownership in 1968, put another way, the person who owned it retained it, or they sold to somebody else, or they sold to the owner of the Baramian property, but put somebody else's name on it. it would have remained single and separate, and we wouldn't even be here today because they would be able to develop the property as of right. So well, you know what? No, because no, you know what? A lot of properties were developed as 60 by 100s, Mrs. D'Amato, or 55 by whatever during the time. This, as I said, I think the intention and I'm, I'm submitting to. By the way, Mr. Nelson will also tell you that that was never brought up in the hearing back in 2006 about the single and separate and the merger. I think that gives you a flavor of what the developer's intent was when they developed the area. And unless the board has questions of me at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson to go into further detail, because
So you're saying that what's changed from the last case to this one is it's a different style house, and
well, if you're making a motion to renew or re-argue, part of it is new facts and part of it is old facts. So one of it is the old fact was that they were proposing a high ranch, which is different than today. The other part, which should have been, and the other part that should have been brought up 17 years ago was the history of the parcel that my client is looking to purchase and develop. By the way, like the last case, he is the contract vendee if this is approved for lots 859 and 860. That was never brought up, in the fact that had been in single and separate ownership, and only through a merger, which is a quirk of fate to a certain degree, that it's not a legal building lot as we sit here today. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson. Is that okay, Chair? Thank you.
Can I have the stand?
Nelson, since the last time you testified before this board, about 15 minutes ago, have any of your qualifications changed?
No, Mr. Chairman, none
Okay.
have.
Okay, so we'll again qualify you as a real estate expert.
Thank you. To do some housekeeping, once again, I prepared a package, and I apologize, only one, but I will bring more later. The photographs were taken on June 8th of 2023 at approximately 10 a.m. in the morning. They are of the subject property, the surrounding property, as well as street scenes, other properties in the neighborhood. They accurately depict the subject neighborhood. In addition, in the package is aerial photographs, location maps, as well as other variances that have been granted in this area, and a location map of those other variances. I'd like to submit this for the board. As long as you're here, I have prepared a radius map. Once again, the radius map bears legends and colors. They show the subject property in green and similar sized properties in yellow. Last, I'd like to, I'm sorry, it's not last, but I'd also like to submit the original property card for the subject property. It should be noted that originally, when developed circa 1932, the property only included, or the property card only included lots 861 and 862, which is a 40 by 100 and the maintained portion of the of this application. And in 1968, the lots 859 and 860 were grouped together with lot 861 and 862. And there's a copy of the property card. The subject property is located on the west side of Kuka Road, 200 feet south of, this is where it gets tricky, Hopachog Avenue, I'm sorry? Thank you. Avenue in the unincorporated section of West Hempstead known as Lakeview, part of the town of Hempstead, Nassau County, New York. The property is designated as Section 35, Block 246, lots 859 through 862. The improved parcel is also known as 3 Kuka Road in West Hempstead. The entire parcel is zoned Residence B by the Town of Hempstead Building Department. The subject property presently affords 80 feet of street frontage along Kuka Road with depths of 100 feet, containing a total of 8,000 square feet in total lot area. The home, which is on the southern portion of the parcel, being situated on lots 861 and 862, was originally built circa 1932 on a 40 by 100 lot. Subsequently, the property to the north, adjoining to the north of lots 861 and 862, known as lots 859 and 860, was acquired in 1967, and in 1968, these lots were grouped together by Nassau County to include all of the lots. Based upon my understanding of these parcels, these parcels were originally intended to be developed separately, similar to the property at 1 Kuka Road, abutting the subject to the south, being located on lots 863 and 864, which was also developed circa 1932 on a similar 40 by 100 foot lot. This is an interesting neighborhood, whereas you have homes that were built in the early 1930s, which are 1 and 1.5 story style cottages, most being built on 40-foot wide lots. Then you have many homes in the area built circa 1950s and 1960s on 60-foot and 80-foot wide lots. The homes built in the 1930s are currently selling in the mid to high $300,000 to the mid to high $400,000 range. The newer properties built circa 1950 and 1960s are currently selling in the mid to high 500s to several over $700,000. Then scattered throughout the neighborhood are, and within approximately a 3-block radius of the subject, I have found approximately 11 to 12 variances that were granted on 40-foot wide properties and some on 50-foot wide properties. Do have a map that indicates with the location of these variances. It might be in the package as well, but I'd also like to submit it. Thereby demonstrating that granting of an area variance in this neighborhood will not adversely affect the market value or the marketability of any of the existing properties. They tend to be selling at the higher end of the value range in this area. I have considered the impact of the building of a home on a reduced lot being a 40-foot wide parcel, and have concluded that if granted and developed accordingly, there would not be any adverse conditions created, nor will it alter the existing essential characteristics of this neighborhood. It will also not adversely affect the market value or the marketability of any of the existing properties. Presently, there are a couple of homes under construction immediately to the north of the subject on lots 856 and 858 is a new home presently under construction on a 60-foot wide lot. On the south side of Pine Brook Avenue, approximately 4 lots west of Pine Brook Court, a new home is currently under construction on a 40 or 42-foot wide lot, which was pursuant to a variance grant. Within the 100-foot radius, there are 13 improved lots. 2 of the 13, or 15%, afford a 40-foot street frontage, one being next door to the subject property, also built in 1932, one being across the street, and one house north of the subject, which was built in 1961 pursuant to a variance granted on a 40 by 100 lot. Within the 200-foot radius, there are 27 improved lots, 11 of the 27, or 40%, are substandard based upon the present Residence B zoning requirements. These percentages aren't overwhelming by any means, like some of the other cases I've presented to this board, but the fact remains that there are scattered substandard lots in the immediate neighborhood, and many approved variances within several blocks of the subject property. No new precedents will be set or created, and no adverse impact will affect the existing properties. It is my professional opinion that granting of the requested variances will not adversely affect any of the existing properties, their market value, their marketability, nor will it affect the quiet enjoyment of any of the nearby property ownership. It has been proven many times that the ownership of a property, of a residential property, brings with it the pride that only stands to enhance a neighborhood and protect the existing properties.
Mr. Nelson, how long have you been doing this?
How long have I been appraising? 40 years. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I tried. I'm flunking the test of how to work the mic. Can you tell us how the character has changed or not changed since 2006?
Since 2006. The character of the neighborhood has not changed. There have been variances granted since 2006 on 40-foot wide lots. So
Wait, in
that
this,
being,
would that be any of the ones that you mentioned, the two on Mayopac? And are those from that time period, or are those from before that?
I believe those are after that, after the 2006. There are two on Mayopac, which is at the corner of Hepatong Avenue. Whatever, thank you. The southwest corner of Mayopac and Hepatong Avenue was a variance granted for 240 by 100s. The northwest corner of that same road, Mayopac and Hepatong Avenue, has variances granted for 240 by 100s. I'm sorry?
When were those granted?
They're in the photographs. The variance, the grants are in the photographs.
I'm trying to follow along with more of these. Mr. Nelson, so
Yes.
can you use lot number?
I know the two on Mayopac, lot two and lot, I guess 2-1. I see lot 913 and 914.
Right.
So can you do again the ones on Hooker Road and
Whole pack count.
On, I'm sorry, on where?
Cuca Road,
other than the two on Mayopac, can you just quickly, but using lot numbers?
Okay, lot on Kukara Road, the address of 1059, lots 904 and 905, is a one-story ranch built in 1961 pursuant to a variance grant. Okay, that's prior to the 2006. You were asking after that.
Yeah, actually, if we could expedite this, just tell me which ones were granted, if you know, after 2006.
2006.
The south side of Pine Brook Avenue, approximately 4 lots west of Pine Brook Court, has variances that were granted for a maintain on a 40 and a new construction being under construction right now on a 40. That was granted in 2020.
Wait, is that lot 73 and 74?
I don't have that in front of me. I mean, the radius map, it exceeds the 200-foot radius.
Oh, so the one...
It is in there.
Oh, hold on. That's what I was just going to say. Okay, so not here, but there's 2020, there's 240 by 100 maintained in it. Okay.
Yes.
Keep going. So basically, no 40 by 100.
Within the
granted in
200-foot
this area
radius.
since '06.
I believe the two on the west corner of Mailpack Road and Hopatchog Avenue were approved after 2006, as well as the northwest corner,
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, but you have to go by lot numbers. So Hopatchog and Mailpack.
the 913 and the 914 lots.
Okay, that's one.
Okay, and the corner above, right above it, it doesn't give me a lot number on it. It's address, I believe, 1046.
Wait, is that the one that we don't have, it's outside the radius, so it says section 35 and 217?
Correct,
That's that lot, if it were identical.
correct.
And that, when do you think those were?
I'm sorry, it was an 80 split into 240s.
But we,
When?
Do we think that was after '06? That's
Yes, I do. As well as the northwest corner, just opposite of the ones we were just discussing.
so outside the map across the street,
Correct, just outside the 200-foot radius across the street.
across Mailpack.
Yes. Across Hopatchog.
Oh, okay.
Patco.
So over here.
Over there.
Okay. Okay, because that just goes to the character of the neighborhood and how it may or may not have changed since 2006. That's what the reason I'm asking.
When I look at a neighborhood, it's more than just a 200-foot radius. So when I'm describing the character of the neighborhood, yes, my explanation certainly extends beyond the 200-foot radius. I know for the purpose of this board, you like to stay within the 200-foot radius, but neighborhoods change, or they maintain the same.
But this one, the character basically hasn't changed since '06, as you said.
The character hasn't changed, but there have been variances granted
Okay, okay.
after 2006.
Mr.
Well-
No,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. You,
All utilities are readily available on Kuka Road, including electric, sewer, water, cable, etc. Parking for the proposed new construction will be provided by a one-car internal garage and a parking pad and driveway in front suitable for an additional 2 to 3 cars. The maintained property already has an on-site parking driveway suitable for 2 or 3 cars. That driveway runs between the existing home and the proposed new construction, thereby will not affect any of the abutting properties. Anticipated sales price for the new home will be approximately $700,000 to $725,000, thereby helping support good neighborhood values. In my professional opinion, the proposed application makes good sense and offers a good solution for assisting in the existing need for residential housing in this area without the detriment to any nearby properties or property owners or the community. My research as of this morning, there are 37 houses currently for sale in all of West Hempstead. So that certainly is under what is common and typical in the residential market.
37 what?
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes, ma'am.
So, in 2006, I don't have any independent recollection of this case. So, I'm having trouble figuring out how this is not already barred by res judicata, as I'm sure you figured that out yourself. Tell us why this isn't.
Well, I'll go back. You know, there is an argument, I don't know that I totally agree with, in fairness, that there is no such thing as res judicata, in that an area changes moment by moment, forget days or weeks or months or years. So there is a validity to the argument, whether you buy it or not, number one. Number two is, the house that is being proposed is totally different. Number three, if the board is inclined to go back and read the minutes, and I take this on my representation from my colleague, Mr. Nelson, who does a very, very, very thorough job of preparing for the hearings. That apparently at the time there was a person living in the property, the house that was seeking to be maintained, who was a tenant and was the scourge of the neighborhood. And that very well may have been a case and entered into the board's thinking. And finally, as I said to the board, if not for the one person in the world buying coming into title on these two, on lots 859 and 860 in 1968, there isn't even a variance case, no less a better case. There is no case because it would have remained single and separate. And I think in making that argument, I think that's the best of all the arguments on my client's behalf, number one. But also, I think it gives an inkling to the board of what the developer of the area's thoughts were. Had the thoughts been to develop the property as a 60 or an 80, the house would have been put in the middle. It wouldn't have been sold off to somebody else. Now, times did change, and somebody merged it. But had it not been merged, you bought it, I bought it, anybody else here bought it, a business, you put it in a corporate name. Never would have happened. Should the person who bought it be penalized at this point? I would argue not. Why should that person be treated differently? Sorry, I thought it was muted. Now it is. So that, you know, and that point was never brought up to the board in 2006. I think it's a very important point, and I would ask the board to, you know, give consideration to that, and hopefully the board would be inclined to grant it. Just let me add for the record, and I will answer any and all questions that the board has. But you know, if this is granted, of course, my client is going to consent to all the normal and customary conditions to prevent the new house from being utilized as a multifamily one rather than one family, and that would be an owner-occupied condition. So I share that with the board also. Okay? That's our case, unless you have something else.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the hearing be closed, the matter be placed on the decision calendar. Everyone in the courtroom who signed in on this case will receive a copy of the board's decision by mail once it is rendered. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Get home safely in the rain. Chairman, I made a mistake in making the motion. There's another individual here who would like to speak on the matter, so I respectfully to close the case.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi. My name is Tanya Johnson. My address is 1056 Cuca Road in West Hempstead, New York, 11552. I'm new to this. I've been Googling and trying to learn all the lingo, but I'm just going to tell you how I feel. I live next door to the house that's being built right now. Happy to see it being built from what was there previously. I've lived on the block for 37 years, and we are a tight block. Like, we're okay with the house that's being built. The thing is, they
Wait,
want to.
can I ask you, so we can follow it, are you referring to the proposed house?
Not, the proposal, the house that's being built next door to me, that's fine. But then the other house that they're asking to build, that's the problem.
Just a minute, ma'am. The house that you say is being built next door to you, is that Aqua Right LLC that's on a 60 by 100? That is not the house that we're talking about in this hearing?
No, we're talking about the one that they're trying to go over into the other lot, that's a smaller lot.
Okay, so there is a house being built next to you, and you're fine with that.
Right.
And now you're going to tell us what you think about this.
Yes.
That's
The
what we have to
other,
clarify.
right, that's where the problem comes, because it's a smaller lot. So I don't know, like, I'm just trying to learn everything, I got a notice, but what they're trying to build another house. One, the overcrowding, like the lady said before, it's overcrowding, the schools are overcrowded, there's no parking, so when they're saying they're building and there's parking, there is no parking. You know, I'm a two-car, I have my son, he has a car, I have a car, me and my husband, but there's no parking, and it's a quiet block. I've been there for 37 years, we haven't had any issues. You're bringing one family in, fine, now you want to bring more people. How is it going to be, I don't know.
She can keep those.
Right, this is my house. So there's a house being built next to me.
You can keep those.
Right, that was, oh, okay, thank you. That was what we were talking about. It's the house that's being built next to it.
We just wanted you to have those since you.
Okay. And that's all I really wanted to say. That's really, like, I'm okay with the first house, but if they're trying to put another house, that lot is not big. It's very small.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Mr. O'Brien, would you like to say anything in response?
If I may, just 1 minute. The lot that we're proposing is not smaller than the Andre lot or the Barker lot, the 40 by 100s. And as far as parking goes, my client will have a one-car garage and a parking pad for 2 other vehicles.
I understand.
And as we've consented to to maintain as an owner-occupied one-family dwelling, there's plenty of parking with 3
Thank you.
spots off-street. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Move the hearing be closed, the matter be placed on decision calendar. Again, everyone who signed in on the case will receive a copy of the board's decision by mail once it's rendered. Thank you. Have a safe home, everyone.
Second.
Wait. All right.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break to allow the court reporter to exercise her
Get the
fingers.
blood back in your hand.
Yep.
Next, we have case 374-23 through 380-23, Merrick 1808 LLC. Variance in off-street parking, special exception to park in front yard setbacks on Sunrise Highway and Lansdowne Avenue, and an insufficient stall size for tandem parking. Special exception to install drive-through window for proposed Pollo Campero restaurant and proposed outdoor dining. Install second wall sign, logo sign on north elevation not permitted. Install detached double-face illuminated pylon sign setback 5 feet from Sunrise Highway and 4.8 feet from side property line. Install second detached illuminated animated sign preview board in conjunction with proposed drive-through. Install third detached illuminated animated sign menu board in conjunction with proposed drive-through. Install one detached double-face illuminated directional sign 3.3 square feet per face totaling 6.6 square feet with drive-through imprinted thereon. Install one detached double-face illuminated directional sign 3.3 square feet per phase totaling 6.6 square feet with thank you and exit only imprinted thereon, formerly known as 1808 Sunrise Highway.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. William Benesso for Chelly Deegan Tirana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York, here on behalf of the applicant, Merrick 1808 LLC. The applicant is also the owner of the subject property, and a representative, a principal of that entity is here today. Seated behind me to my right is Adam Mann. He is a principal of Merrick 1808 LLC. Also seated behind me to my right is Ms. Fabiola Suarez. She is the development manager for Pollo Campero, the proposed tenant for the restaurant that is proposed for the site. And also seated behind me to my right are representatives from Bowler Engineering, the site engineers for this project. All are available to answer any questions that the board may have of them. And then seated to my right is Mr. Frank Filisciotto of Creighton Manning Engineering. Mr. Filisciotto is a transportation engineer who has been qualified by this board on many occasions in the past as a traffic expert and authorized to provide expert opinion testimony, and we'll be asking that he be permitted to do the same today. Before I get into the specifics of the application, I would like to hand up some things that I think might be helpful to the board. I have six copies of a handout that provides information about Pollo Campero, the proposed tenant. I also have 6 handouts of basically just a handout that will allow the board to follow along a little bit. It contains information about the site as it presently exists, how it will be developed, and then also shows some comparisons to other quick service restaurants and with drive-throughs in the area, and also shows some other site developments by this particular client, Mr. Mann's other entities. And then we have the traffic study that has been prepared by Creighton Manning for this application. So I'd like to hand all of those up if I may.
Take those in evidence. Yep. Traffic study.
It is. There are a few on Long Island. This will be their first drive-through on Long Island, but they have almost 100 restaurants in the United States. They're in 17 different states. They've been around since 1971, and
What states mostly? I mean, what areas?
well, if you take a look at the handout regarding Pollo, you'll see the states that they're in. One of the pages shows where the states that they occupy. They're mostly in the northeast, southeast, and southwest, but there are a few other states that pop up there.
Are you referring to the one that has the franchise territory and the corporate territory?
Hold on.
This one?
Yeah, you can see where the franchise operations are and where the corporate ones. This will be a corporate site, by the way.
Did you say 1971?
71, I believe. If I may, you guys all set? Okay, thank you. The application pertains to 1808 Sunrise Highway in Merrick. It is a parcel of property that's just over a half acre in size. It is situated on the south side of Sunrise Highway, and it's comprised of 2 lots making up one proposed development parcel. The larger lot, the lot that fronts on Sunrise Highway, is presently vacant. The smaller lot is a lot on Lansdowne Avenue that has a small dwelling on it. The proposal is to demolish everything on the property and to redevelop it with a new Pollo Campero one-story quick-service restaurant with a drive-through operation. As noted, the property runs, it has about 153 feet of frontage on Sunrise Highway to the north, about 150 feet of frontage on Lansdowne Avenue to the south. So it's a through lot. Be that as it may, no access whatsoever is proposed from Lansdowne Avenue, not for pedestrians, not for vehicles. That property line, along with the side property lines, will be fenced with 6-foot-high PVC fencing that runs all the way around the 3 sides of the property, but for the 15 feet closest to the roadway on Sunrise Highway, so that it doesn't interfere with sight lines for entering or exiting traffic. The property is entirely zoned Business X District, and the proposed use, which is a one-story, 2,598 square foot quick service restaurant building, is a unconditionally permitted use in the district. That being said, we are asking for relief in association with certain aspects and certain accessory uses. The main one being the drive-through that requires a special permit from this board, as do the drive-through menu board and preview boards that are proposed for the drive-through lanes. There are other signs that require signage variances. 2 directional signs, small signs, one at the exit of the drive-through that basically just says thank you and points out which way to go for the exit. One at the entrance of the drive-through pointing out the entrance. There is a detached pylon sign situated on the northeast corner of the property. It is fully compliant, but for its setback is 5 feet as opposed to the required 20 feet. But as you'll hear from our traffic expert, it does not interfere with the right turn in and right turn out traffic that will be accessing the site from Sunrise Highway. The other signage variance pertains to facial signage on the building. The other relief pertains to an outdoor dining area, which we are proposing on the easterly side of the building. That requires a special use permit. And then there are variances associated with the parking of the site. The restaurant proposes a total of 76 seats, 16 of them being outdoor seats, so they're basically seasonal seats. Inside the building, there will be 60, but when you combine the 2, you come up with a total of 76 seats. Those 76 seats require 26 parking spaces, plus the 8 employees that will be present at, the most number of employees that will be present will be 8 at any given time, require another 2 parking spaces for a total of 28 spaces. The site in question provides 25 parking spaces. However, 8 of them are deemed non-compliant. 3 of them are situated within the front yard setback. Those are deemed non-compliant because of that, and as such require a front yard setback special a parking in the front yard setback special exception. Be that as it may, there are literally thousands of parking spaces along Sunrise Highway that are in the front yard setback. But the other 5 spaces are spaces that are situated on the southerly side of the property, adjacent to the bypass lane for the drive-through, and they are basically parallel parking spaces, and those require relief because they are 22 feet long instead of the required 25 feet long, which is what you find which is what's required for parallel parking spaces. But be that as it may, we see these spaces mostly as employee spaces because when you come right down to it, the employees are probably going to park back there because that way you don't have people parking, customers parking back there who might interfere with traffic in the bypass lane or the drive-through lane. So,
The parallel, the ones you call parallel are the ones they're referring to as tandem, I guess, because they.
yes, tandem, parallel.
Tandem, but not
Yeah,
really, 'cause you
correct.
can get 'em out.
Yes, in fact, the town does call them tandem, so I apologize. I should have called them tandem. The site will entail, however, a full redevelopment. It's going to be a very attractive site. There's a lot of landscaping space. If you take a look at some of the pages of the handout, you'll see there's going to be a lot of green space. My client is going to put, as indicated, 6-foot-high new PVC fencing along the 3 sides of the property, as well as landscaping on the interior of the fencing and new street trees along Lansdowne Avenue. So there'll be new trees planted there, and those you can just see in the colored site plan that you have.
When you're dropping down the fencing to 3, I think it says here.
I'm sorry?
You're dropping down the fencing to 3 feet from 15 feet on Sunrise, right?
No, we're actually stopping the fence 15 feet from Sunrise.
Oh, it says to be 3 feet for the first 15 feet. So
Oh,
now it's
I'm sorry,
0.
you're right. I apologize. Privacy, you're right. Privacy PVC fencing, 3-foot height for the first 15 feet. I
So
apologize.
for how many feet is there no fencing or 3 feet? Whatever.
There, actually, the fencing goes right up to the front property line, but it's 3 feet high.
Okay.
It's 3 feet high.
And if the 3 feet is all I care about is being able to see the building.
Right. You'll hear from our expert that
Okay.
it will not interfere with sight lines.
Okay.
And the pylon sign has the necessary 7-foot clearance, so there won't be any issue with that. But certainly the majority of the parking is situated in the front of the site. That's where 20 parking spaces are found. There is a wraparound drive-through. The drive-through has enough stacking for 7 vehicles, as you'll hear from Mr. Filisciotto. The drive-through activity for the Pollo Camperos that they've looked at and analyzed generate far less stacking than do your fast food type facilities like McDonald's and certainly like Starbucks, which need much more stacking. This 7 stacked spaces will be more than enough, as you'll hear from Mr. Filisciotto. There is a bypass lane which allows people to exit the drive-through if they need to get out of the property without having to wait. Refuse receptacle will be situated in the front portion of the property, adjacent to 2 of the parking spaces. It'll be in a fully compliant enclosure. The applicant will agree to conditions that the pickup of refuse occur off hours and only occur in the front of the building. Same applies to deliveries. Deliveries to this site will probably occur twice a week using a key drop system. The deliveries occur, they do typically occur during operating hours, but the delivery vehicle will park in the front of the site in order to be able to access the property from there, and they will only use the front of the building to make their deliveries. The drive-through, as noted, will have a pre-menu board and a menu board. The speaker and microphone on those will be self-attenuating in terms of volume.
During the busier times, with more ambient noise, they get a little louder, but later on, they're quieter when the surrounding noise is quieter. The hours of operation for this facility are not like fast food. There's not like a Wendy's that's open till 2 a.m. Their hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day of the week. So it's a little different from, you know, the typical drive-through. So it's consequently certainly a more appropriate and desirable use near residential properties.
Mr. Benesso?
Yes, sir.
On your handout, I believe the hours of operation on Sunday appear to be 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
9 a.m. to 10 p.m. it
I
indicates?
believe that's what it said.
Okay,
I
because
glanced at it.
I was told 10 a.m. Can we accept 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.? We'll make it 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
I was wondering who eats chicken for breakfast. Go ahead.
That's a basic overview of the site development plan and the relief being requested. If the board has any questions of me or any specific questions about the site plan, I'd be happy to answer them or call up engineers who can.
Is there one already on the island?
Yeah, they have several locations on the island. There's one in Hempstead, there's one in Huntington. There are a few others, I'm sure, but Bayshore? There's one in Bayshore as well.
So the only one in Nassau is Hempstead?
Well, Hempstead and is one in Nassau, and this will be the first drive-through.
So there's just one in Hempstead?
One in in the town of Hempstead.
No, in Nassau County.
Is there any other in Nassau County? You're not sure. You're not sure.
No.
If there are no further questions of me, I'll pass it over to Mr. Filisciotto to speak to the parking variance and to the site circulation.
Where's the one in Hempstead?
On Fulton Avenue. Not far from here. You can walk to it from here. It's been there quite a while.
I think that's the, used to be a diner. You have previously been qualified by this board on numerous occasions as a traffic expert since you last appeared before the board. Have any of your qualifications changed?
No, sir.
And then we will qualify you as a traffic expert today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, Frank Filisciotto with Creighton Manning. My firm completed a traffic impact study. We've submitted it for the record today, dated June 13th, 2023.
That's what I'm looking up.
As Mr. Benesso said, the subject set is located on the south side of Sunrise Highway, which is the eastbound direction of that roadway. Our traffic study focused primarily on how Apoyo Comparo operates in terms of traffic generation and parking, given the fact that we're seeking a parking variance from this board. Given that there is not Apoyo Comparo on Long Island currently with drive-through, we did comprehensive studies that looked further afield at Pollo Comparos with the drive-through in order to give the board an understanding of how these types of facilities operate. So that really helped inform our findings and conclusions relative to traffic and parking, and I'll go through that shortly. Just want to hit on the high notes. The subject restaurant is 2,598 square feet. Providing 60 interior seats, 16 exterior seats. As Mr. Benesso mentioned, those will be seasonal. 25 parking spaces will be provided, 28 are required, so that's the 3-stall variance we are seeking. Drive-through provided at the rear of the site, so the south side of the site, with a bypass lane. 7-car stack is provided. And in terms of access, the site will provide one right turn in, right turn out driveway on Sunrise Highway. Sunrise Highway is a divided road in this section, as it is for through most of Long Island, if not all of Long Island, with the exception of a few spaces. But in this section, it's fully divided, so the driveway can only be right in and right out. There will be no left turns into or out of the subject property, and there will be no access on Lansdowne Avenue. So in order to get into this site, you must be traveling on eastbound Sunrise Highway. and you will exit the site going eastbound on Sunrise Highway. In terms of traffic, we looked at 2 intersections, one on either side of the site, Babylon Turnpike and Lansdowne Avenue. We wanted to understand the levels of traffic at those intersections so that we could understand, well, when we build this restaurant, what types of changes, if any, could occur. We looked at traffic volumes at those intersections during 3 distinct time periods: the weekday midday period, the weekday evening period, and the Saturday midday period, 3 hours each during each of those periods. Those coincide with lunchtime, dinner, and then lunch again on Saturday. So we wanted to make sure we captured traffic during those periods, but also traffic during those periods tends to be higher than other times of the day anyway, due to people running errands, buying lunch, commuting, etc. Not unexpectedly, traffic at some of these intersections along Sunrise Highway is somewhat constrained during certain hours. The intersections operate overall at acceptable levels of service, but there are some movements that are more difficult, such as left turns during certain times. So that's the baseline condition. Sunrise Highway's tens of thousands of vehicles per day. It provides a good opportunity for a restaurant or a use like this to really draw from existing traffic rather than putting it in a location where you need to create that traffic. In order to determine the amount of traffic that this particular site would generate, we typically look at ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, for data. However, the ITE data set likely does not include Pollo Campero restaurants. We wanted to get a little bit more granular, a little bit more specific, given that this would be the first location on Long Island with a drive-through. So we did 2 things. One, we looked at the site in Bayshore. Bayshore does not have a drive-through, but it is similarly standalone. A lot of Pollo Camperos are inline, so they're next to an adjacent store and a strip center. The Bayshore location is a standalone location. So similar to this, we wanted to study that. Similarly, we wanted a site that has a drive-through. We really wanted to understand how drive-through changes, if it changes at all, the behavior of trip making. The closest one that we found that was similar not only in size but in terms of standalone and had its own site was one down in Maryland, Frederick, Maryland, in fact. So we actually studied the site in Frederick, Maryland, in addition to the Bayshore, to understand the traffic levels at each one. Bayshore actually yielded much higher traffic than the Maryland site, even though it does not have a drive-through. So we took the Bayshore data to be conservative, and that's what we used to project the traffic associated with this site. Overall, we found that the traffic generated by Pollo Campero would be under 100 trips during the peak hour. That's lower than the threshold deemed to be impactful. Generally speaking, 88 peak hour trips or 44 vehicles in the worst case peak hour. So this is far and away not a McDonald's, not a Starbucks in terms of traffic intensity. It's more similar to what we see more commonly quick serve restaurants generate, such as like a Chipotle, much lower volume generation than your standard fast food restaurant. Overall, traffic is expected to increase by at most 1% when compared to existing traffic volumes on the road. One thing we did not take credit for, but will definitely apply here, is the concept of pass-by traffic. This site is located on Sunrise Highway. There's tens of thousands of vehicles that pass it every day. The idea that someone passing this site now could all of a sudden turn in once they see a site operational is definitely a high possibility, and we expect that some of the traffic that become customers of this site are already on the roadway today. So that would even further reduce the impact of the site. Getting to parking, we also looked at the Bayshore site for information relative to parking generation. The Bayshore site does not have a drive-through lane, so there's no choice at that location but to park. We found that the maximum parking demand at Bayshore was 23 vehicles. We have 25 parking spaces on this site, in addition to a drive-through lane with a 7-car queue. Studies in California have shown that the parking demand of a Pollo Campero is even less, approximately half of that. So we feel with 25 spaces plus the drive-through that we have more than adequate capability on site to handle the traffic associated with the project. Relative to the drive-through queue itself, the 7-vehicle queue, I preface this by saying that this is not your typical Starbucks or McDonald's in terms of intensity of traffic. We see 14, 15, 16 car queues at some of those locations. This is not that. It's a much less impactful use from a drive-through perspective. We looked at, we could not study the Bayshore site because it doesn't have a drive-through, but we looked at the Frederick, Maryland site. There was one instance when the queue reached 7 vehicles, one instance. Every other instance was far less. Studies in Texas, Florida, and California revealed a maximum queue of 4 vehicles. So again, we believe that the 7-car queue is more than adequate. And I'll note that if you look at the site plan, the back of the queue is on the opposite side of the property. So even if there was an 8th vehicle, it would be over 100 to 150 feet from the driveway on Sunrise Highway. So it would not interfere or cause harm with traffic entering and exiting. In addition, in the Bayshore location, we noticed that a lot of the people purchasing Pollo Campero would walk in, immediately walk out, get in their cars, and drive away, which mimics really the behavior of a drive-through customer. So we believe, again, there's adequate accommodations on this site to accommodate the demand. Finally, the pylon sign is located east of the driveway. It's at the northeast corner of the site. Because this driveway that we're proposing is right in and right out, the sign will not be in any sight line. The only sight line here is looking left or to the west for a driver. So that sign will not even factor in sight line analysis. Further, the fence that came up prior to my testimony is 3 feet up to the property line for a distance of 15 feet back from it, but it is also not in the sight triangle. So any driver who's looking left or west down Sunrise Highway to look for a gap in traffic, that fence is not in the sight line as well.
May I ask you?
Sure. I have not analyzed that specifically, but I will say that it is more than 14 feet back from the edge of pavement. The sign, so, correct. From the edge of the traveled way, actually, and there's a shoulder on Sunrise Highway. So the perspective of a driver will be beyond the threshold of that sign. There's a building right there, and then the driveway is beyond that, so it's a little bit farther east than. The building, I believe, is on the 0 lot line, if I'm not mistaken.
It's right on its westerly property line.
Right. The sign. The sign.
The building is set back, but it's important to note that the sign has the required 7-foot clearance, so that there's no blockage for a person looking to the left to see if there's an opening.
Right.
The only thing in that sight line is the sign pylon, but it's just one thin pole, and everything else is open. The sign doesn't start until 7 feet tall.
Right. In other words, it's not a monument sign that
Right.
sits on the ground and blocks.
That rises and actually blocks the view.
Right, right. And just one final note, because this is on Sunrise Highway, we are working with the New York State Department of Transportation to get a highway work permit. All indications from them to this point have been positive. We're working through that process, and we hope to have a permit shortly. Obviously, we need that for any construction of the property. Thank you.
And Ms. Adams, just to answer your questions, I just went online. There is Pollo Campero at 50 Fulton Avenue in Hempstead. There's one in Lawrence. There is, then there are some in Queens, Huntington Station, Bayshore, Brooklyn, a couple in New York City, and then Central Islip as well. So, but this will be the first drive. Pardon? Well, Bayshore is definitely a freestanding.
Bayshore standalone.
The rest are mostly inline parts of other strip centers or shopping centers. Unless there are any further questions of Mr. Filisciotto, I'll just finish the direct presentation. Nassau County Planning Commission has not made a recommendation yet. They are meeting tomorrow morning to make a recommendation. That said, I spoke with Mr. Martin Katz, who is their zoning coordinator, and he told me that the staff is recommending a local determination on this matter, but that'll be determined tomorrow. And then I do want to point out that both prior to today and today, we had several conversations with some of the neighbors who are here today, who live either on Lansdale or Vassar, and we did agree to some conditions that we would implement with regard to the site that we believe address some of their concerns. I've touched upon a couple of them. We're going to maintain a 6-foot PVC fence along the entire southerly property line and the easterly and westerly property lines, but for the 3-foot sections that run 15 feet up. There will be new street trees planted on Lansdowne. There will be landscaping planted on the interior side of the fencing on all 3 sides of the lot. In terms of the venting of the exhaust from the building for cooked foods, they've agreed to design and direct the venting such that it is released to the north, venting it facing the north so that other than a prevailing wind out of the north pushing it south, it'll reduce any impact on the neighbors to the south. We've agreed that in the outdoor dining area where there are some small garbage receptacles for people who eat out there to throw their waste into, they will be covered so that the wind doesn't blow them away or birds don't come in and start picking things out of them. And I already mentioned the self-attenuating speakers and microphones on the building. The last one is that, as presently proposed, there's an illuminated sign on the south side of the building, which basically faces Lansdowne, and it's illuminated. We've agreed to take that sign off the building. It is sign number 3. Sign number 3. It's in the southeast corner of the south side of the building. We're going to move that sign to the west side of the building so that it won't be visible for the neighbors situated to the south. It basically says Pollo Campero. If you look at it's the sign. Yeah, it's the signage on the sides of the building. So we've agreed to move that and not have any signage on the south side of the building. So with all that being said, I think that completes our direct presentation. We would just ask for an opportunity to respond to any public comment. Anybody want to speak? You're all good?
My question is, does it require outdoor seating? Sorry. Carlene Cusick, 2300 Girard Place, Merrick, New York. Hi, sorry. My only question is the outdoor seating. I don't know if it would be possible, since it is your test to do a drive-through, and you're having the drive-through and the inner building, does it require to have outdoor seating? I'm sorry. My question is, it's a test to have drive-through. It's your first drive-through. So that's a test and having the tables inside. Does it require to have the 4 tables outside?
Answer the question. It's not a requirement. It is a request because they know from experience that there are those people who on nice days will want to sit outside and take advantage of the nice weather. That's why it's a special use permit of this board. It's not a large area. We're talking about a total of 4 tables, and that's the request that is being made. I don't think it will be very impactful. Certainly, at night, it's not if the concern is that it's going to generate noise at night, that area is not. First of all, it's a good 50 feet away from the rear property line, and I don't know that it's going to have any negative impacts in that regard.
Okay.
Fence, trees, and landscaping as well.
Okay, and does the Bay Shore site have outdoor seating? I'm sorry, does the Bay Shore site have outdoor seating?
We can look that up. Why don't you step up and answer that?
Oh, sure. No, this is a learning curve for me, too. Right.
Fabiola Suarez, out of Dallas. It's 12404 Park Central Drive. I am the development manager for Pollo Campero. The patio is part of our standard experience for the dine-in. The drive-through is not a test. I think what they were getting at is it's our first ground up with a drive-through in this area, but we have 100 locations in the U.S., and probably about half of those, if not 3/4 of those, have drive-through. So it's not a test, it's part of the experience. We are a family-owned brand that is very much unique to the family dynamics, and so the patio is part of the experience when you dine into our restaurants. And so that's the reason it's part of our standard design.
Okay.
If there's nothing more, that's it. Thank you very much. That completes our presentation. Oh, yes, ma'am. We don't believe so. We don't believe so. Yeah. I think he may have left because he was satisfied with the conditions that we were going to impose.
Mr. Chairman, I would just move that the hearing be closed and matter be placed on the decision calendar. Everyone who signed in on the case will receive a copy of the board's decision by mail once it's rendered. Thank you all for coming, being patient, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Mr. Benesso, are you going to submit to us an amended plan with those minor alterations? And then, yeah, and whatever, and if the fence or trees or whatever. And, okay, and I didn't see the trees. But anyway, and you want to give us a list of the conditions you agree to?
Mr. Benesso, could you please have your clients go outside because we do have another case? We do. The gavel.
And we have case 31423 near Westbury. Lawrence and Anne Marie Perez. Variance, front yard average setback, maintain garage conversion to living space, attached dwelling, also known as 163 Friends Lane.
Yeah, we should have done it first. Nah, but Ms. Laspisa wants to say, and she likes, she gets paid overtime. It's a little bump out, that's why.
If the board wants to see those photos, but it is very common for where a lot of the homes did convert the garage. And this did come up, they're looking to close that, sell the home, and that's when this was brought to their attention that it needed to be legalized.
Ms. Laspisa?
Yes.
Interestingly, usually when we see the garage converted to living, it's oftentimes generates a side yard. The garage was always in this location, right? I'm surprised, I'm not clear on why it caused a front yard when it was already there, you know what I?
Because, so the way these homes were built, it had a roof over, a small roof over in front of the garage. So the roof over was enclosed and the garage converted. So actually, the original dwelling on the southwest corner is 25.9. So we're maintaining really what the original dwelling is. It's just that the garage was converted. Correct.
That's your case.
That's it, unless the board has any questions. I do have other photos if the board wants to see them.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the hearing be closed, the matter be placed on the decision calendar. Ms. Laspisa, you'll be notified by mail of the board's decision once it's rendered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a nice evening. Second.
I didn't realize you were there, we should have called.
All in
No,
favor?
it's okay.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
What? All right, 2.5 second break before we do the balance of the decision. Where did Dawn go? She left? Okay. In the rack. Huh? What? You don't get paid for that anyway, you're management. Yeah, we're salary too, we could stay till late. But yeah, we haven't had one of those in a while. decisions. Okay? Ready? All right. Patrick is, okay, Patrick. Got it? Ready? Okay, case 401 of 2023, Levittown, Viola Freitas. Do I have any discussion from any of the board members? And if not, do I have a motion?
I move case 401 of 23 Levittown, Viola Freitas, located at 31 Meadow Lane, be approved as requested. Normal shed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Cases 402 and 403 of 2023, companion cases, obviously. Do I have any questions or any discussion from any of the board members? And if not, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just remind that this is a case in which there was no NCPC determination. It's going to be held tomorrow, so if that's a consideration the board
Okay,
wants
so
to
we'll
come.
hold it.
Yeah.
We'll hold it till the next meeting. All right. Cases number 404 and 405. I would expect that we do have some discussion in connection with these cases.
Would you like?
Go right
And
ahead.
As a practical matter, while I do believe that Mr. O'Brien's argument regarding administrative res judicata was creative, the Second Department and the Court of Appeals, the law meets out. Administrative res judicata is something that actually exists. A distinguishing factor needs to be drawn between a previous denial or a previous grant and what's currently happening. So it behooves the board, if they determine that the testimony from the expert and Mr. O'Brien were sufficient, to establish that this set of factors is different than what was previously discussed in 2006.
I believe that well, I'll wait for anyone to make I don't think that it's appropriate for me to initiate a discussion, but I'd be happy to do so.
I would like to find out the basis. I would like to see if we can find out the basis of the prior decision. So I'd like to hold it, so we can make some sort of reasonable determination about whether or not we think that the doctrine of res judicata would preclude, would affect our decisions.
Okay, we'll hold it. All right, cases 374 through 380 of 2023. Do I have any discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
Okay, well, Mr. Benesso said that he
He's
was
gonna-
going to
he's
give
going to
conditions.
deliver.
So do we have to wait for the conditions?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll hold it.
And there's no, NCPC. Now, why would this not require a secret determination?
So the standard for secret determinations there are certain thresholds that are required for something to be labeled as a type 1. For type 2 or unlisted, the way that we determine it and the way that the Conservation of Waterways determine it is if it's less than the thresholds required for a type 1, so for example, if you have more than 10 lots being subdivided, that is a type 1 threshold issue. Now, if we have 2 lots, depending on impacts, environmental impacts, Conservation of Waterways generally does not deny that as unlisted, but if it's a 4-part, they generally do. So it's all based on a threshold matter. It was determined because of the parking spaces that were provided, and they only need a minimal variance for parking, it did not rise to the level of needing to be listed as an unlisted
Okay,
action.
thank you for that explanation. We're going to hold that case anyway.
In that case, make sure we get the amended site.
Yeah,
Okay, so hold for the amended site plan.
okay. Case 1357 of 2023 has been adjourned to June 28th at 2 p.m. Case 314 of 2023 near Westbury, Lawrence and Anne Marie Perez. Do I have any discussion from the board members? If not, do I have a motion?
I will move, Mr. Chairman, that case 314 of 2023, Lawrence and Anne Marie Perez, as you've described it, affecting the property at 163 Friends Lane near Westbury, be approved as requested.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
Patrick, look at the podium.
Do we have anything else to
Just a-
discuss, or can I have
Yes.
a motion?
Yep.
No.
We do.
Okay, with respect to page 4 of the reserve, number 372 and 373 of 23. We received information with respect to that the homeowner is willing to remove the electricity in the shed or remove the shed completely.
That's correct. This is case 372 through 373, Rosia Di Giovanni.
Page 4.
Yeah, so I had conversations with the homeowner. The shed was a big issue because with the electricity, it could be converted into a living space. She wasn't able to attend, and just wanted to clarify the record for that purpose. Also, there was a question about whether it was listed. It currently has not been on the market since August of last year. She wants to sell the home because they're moving to North Carolina. She has a father with a heart condition. They're going to use the proceeds to take care of his medical care.
Remove the shed. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. With
Okay.
respect to 372 of 2023, and that is for maintain additions attached to the dwelling. That would be, I would like that granted.
Okay.
And with respect to 373 of 23, and this property is located at 3084 Roxbury Road in Oceanside. With respect to that, is the variance is lot area occupied, maintain shed addition to detached garage. That would be denied. And because the homeowner said that she would remove it, I say that she should remove the shed completely.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Any other comments?
I have one modification request. This is pertaining to case 165 of 2004 concerning BJ's Wholesaler at Valley Stream Green Acres. As a condition to the grant back in 2004, there was a condition that required that the air conditioning units be held solely on the northerly side of the building. When it was built, that condition was not enforced. They received the certificate of occupancy. Now they're coming back for internal alterations. The building department figured out their mistake about the air conditioners not being on the northerly side. I went to review the record. There was nothing on the record that specifically stated that the air conditioning units had to be on the northerly side, nor did the site plans that were originally submitted show that the air conditioning units were to be on the northerly side. I don't know why that condition was required. The location does not impact really anything. Yes, it's not, yeah, exactly, you're in the middle of Green Acres Mall. So they're requesting that modification, to modify that condition to be removed from that grant. I believe, from what I see, it is appropriate motion.
Case number?
Case number is 165 of 2004.
Mr. Chairman, I would move as it relates to case 165, 2004, as counsel to the board has previously described it, that we remove the condition requiring that there be air conditioning units and that those units be on the northern side of the structure.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's all I have for today.
Another motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn until our next scheduled meeting.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Anybody left